Hello everyone. Today we're going to take a look at the Eachine EV800D goggle, featuring a detachable visor, 3-position head strap, 5-inch 800 by 480 screen, dual antenna diversity, 40 channel reception, a 6-leaf right-hand circular polarized antenna, a 16 dBi patch antenna. It has a DVR. It can also take a picture while you're recording. Auto search, audio video in. It mounts to a tripod. It switches from 4.3 to 16.9. A built-in 1200 milliamp battery. It charges via this little tiny barrel connection. Comes with a power brick to charge, audio video in cable, a power cable that can take up to 3S, and a bag to carry it in. The faceplate weighs 137.31 grams. The screen weighs 265.67 grams. So the main reason we're here today is I had reviewed the RedPawz EV800 Pros, and I made the mistake of extrapolating the experience that I had with this into others that we might see under a different brand. And several of you in that video know. If you want to, I'll put the card right up here. You're willing to watch my colossal mistake. Many of you said, you know, I have the EV800 Pro Ds and they work a lot better than that. And I thought, well, you know, you can chalk that up to just, you know, maybe I got a bad unit or something of that nature. So we're back at this again. Functionally, they're very similar. The main differences you'll find in the things that I didn't already mention would be the button layout is different. You can get a look at it hopefully there. And let me take the antennas off and you can get a better look. So you can see the button layout is ever so slightly different. We've got the function key, which is a little bit different because it used to be just the menu and source over here. Channel and band is over here. On the Eachines, it's the take a picture and record. We also notice one kind of big difference for me is the RedPawz over here are RP-SMA connectors versus the Eachine or SMA connectors. So that makes me happier because I have a lot more antennas that can work on here. I don't have to use adapters. But you can see the difference in the menu layout here. But also something else that's different is the ability in the Eachine product to be able to go from a very square picture that's 4:3 to a wide screen picture that fills the screen and is 16:9, more that movie-like visual. Let's turn them both on and take a look at the overlay that they both have. So I've set up a little camera so we can take a look at the image, and the thing that stands out the most to me is the RedPawz here on the right, especially when you look at the human element there of my hand. It does appear a lot more yellowish than it does on the Eachine over here on the left. The Eachine on the left appear much more natural. Also, you should note that the Eachine did not lock on when I did this search as quickly as the RedPawz did. Matter of fact, the Eachine got the wrong channel when it did lock on, so I had to manually select the channel. We can also see the difference in the layout and the information that we have. It's very similar, but the Eachine does not have the time and the date, nor does it have the icon for the status of the SD card. The primary point of FPV goggles is to receive our signal from our vehicle, and I've done a little test. In this test, I walk the quad around, so it does kind of bob and weave as I walk, but I do fast forward through most of the walking and just do the interference or obstacle test. This is not a range test. My body does also provide quite a bit of interference when my body is between the antenna and the goggles that are sitting on the table. So let's go ahead and let's take a look at that. As we start our walk around, it's not going to take much to notice that the Eachine goggles do get a lot better reception. We're already seeing a lot of breakup, well, a fair bit of breakup from the RedPawz. Every once in a while it's a lot. And we're going to sit down here behind the shed. Keep in mind the camera I am using is a microswift, that is a CCD camera. I have the details of the recording on the screen, and it's important to note that the kilobits per second, the amount of data in the recording is far greater in the Eachine goggles than it is on the RedPawz. And so that's probably going to mean we have a better image. And so far from what I'm seeing, I wish my yard was in a little better shape, but yeah, I can see the results and the difference in not just the color, but the saturation as well. And I'm just kind of taking my normal path, some of the areas where I break up in, and we then go into the neighbor's yard here shortly, and we get down below grade. And I think that's kind of an important test because it simulates larger obstacles. We do use the house in this test as the largest obstacle in my test. But if you're flying in other areas where you might be going behind a hill or thinking about going behind the hill, this will give you some idea of the reception to expect. You can see sometimes the breakup that we experience on the RedPawz is really dramatic as we get here where the house is between us and the goggles itself. I am wearing my Fat Shark goggles to get an idea of where I'm pointing the camera at, but I am of course not recording that. What you see in front of you is the DVRs from each of these goggles. And being down low on the ground is not the ideal reception, but we're not testing ideal reception. I'm testing to see how bad it might be. And I tend to fly low. I oftentimes, when I'm flying, I fly below 10 feet. And so this simulates for me kind of a similar flying experience. If you fly real high, you'll have a much different experience, I would expect. Here we're down in the neighbor's yard, and now we're down below grade. So now we have the ground providing more of an obstacle and that large tree as well. And we're going to go down deeper over into my neighbor's yard here. There's a little creek down here that sometimes in the summer after a rain, my oldest will have friends come over and they'll play down this creek. It's kind of, I don't think you see it very well, but there's kind of an interesting like rock face over here that as we're walking towards it, you can maybe see it a little bit, but not too much. Just a little deeper in my neighbor's yard, sitting down behind the tree, and the RedPawz is, I would say, sometimes unusable. We're going to go to another spot up here in my neighbor's yard that I thought would provide us some sort of interesting test, and that's behind these stones. These stones are about a foot deep, so really terrible object to be behind. So we got to get some sort of reflection somewhere else. And you see the Eachine just dropped out completely there for a while, a blue screen. So that's something to note in the DVR of the Eachines as well, is that sometimes you get nothing. It does go blue. It used to be when goggle DVRs first came out, I think we used to see white screens, and we would always complain about that. In this case, we get a blue one. There is, I must acknowledge the possibility that the difference in the DVR and the reception could be a software update that is on the Eachine goggles that is not on the RedPawz goggles. I did not update these myself. These are straight from the retailers themselves. And we're going to do our final little stop where you get to see where the goggles are actually sitting, and you see that they're sitting beside each other. And I've put the antennas in about as similar positions as I could with just kind of looking at them. So with that test, you know, the Eachine goggles work a lot better. I'm a little bit concerned about that blue screen we saw on the Eachine goggles. It only came up, I think it was the one time that we saw that instead of giving us a really broken up image, it went blue on us. That could be some sort of processing issue that I had here, but if you have a set of those goggles, please tell us whether you experienced that similar or if that is something that has gone awry within my video processing, because I did process the DVR footage by itself together before I put the rest of the video together. So it could be that blue screen is from the video processing here through my editor and not on the goggles itself. Please keep that in mind. But I think for the dollars, you shouldn't buy the RedPawz for any reason, even if you find a great coupon on these. I think this, if you get these really cheap, this could provide you with a monitor to have at your desk if you're doing builds or something like that, so you can test your camera setups without having to put on, say, if you have a pair of Fat Shark goggles. I think they would kind of work for ride-alongs, but I wouldn't suggest it, just because if you hand these to someone, they won't have a good visual experience with all that breakup. They'll kind of think, how the heck are you flying this thing? I can't see anything. So I would say that unless these are really cheap and you're planning on just using them on the desk, you shouldn't buy them. And the Eachine ones perform pretty well. And I actually like the fact that in the DVR footage that it doesn't have the time and the date on it. That was... You know, I tend to put OSD information down there, and for me, making videos and posting them here on YouTube and not being able to take that information off the screen, that would make me crazy. I would actually have to move my OSD information to a different location. I do think that having less information on the screen for me as a pilot on the Eachine goggles is a bonus. So I think with all these things added up, the Eachine goggles are a good set of goggles. I would suggest that if you're looking at box goggles that you can get a set of these and they'll work very well for you. I don't think they're for anybody who has a visual impairment that's very great. You will not get glasses unless the glasses are very, very small. Here's my glasses. Let me show you. I do wear glasses, and I can use these goggles. They do function for me, and my glasses are kind of dirty, don't judge. But getting glasses inside of there is, you know, it's, unless your glasses are very small in width and height, they're just not going to get in there very well. So if you're looking at these goggles in your glasses wearer, your prescription will need to be fairly light like mine. If you have any sort of dramatic visual problem, it may not work. Also note that, here, let's move these. Also note that on the RedPawz, I continue to have issues with it not sticking down. I continually have to press this down, and I haven't had that experience, but I have had the RedPawz a little bit longer. But something else that they did that I didn't see on the RedPawz, if you can see that, see these little metal brackets down here? That's actually squeezing the bottom piece on. It's like it's been clamped on. They might slide on. I'm not certain about that. But I also think that that's a good idea because it helps to keep this foam faceplate down. And you can buy more foam if these get a little bit musty or stinky from sweating in the summer heat. You can get new foam from many different retailers. I do know Banggood carries that as well. So it's nice that they have the added bonus of the charging adapter or the powering adapter, so you can plug in a 3S battery to these. Whereas this, you just don't get that. You'd have to wire up something yourself. So I think that the features are a little bit more rich on the Eachine, but the performance is far greater. I want to thank those of you that called my review out and said that, you know, I shouldn't state things like we could extrapolate the information from the RedPawz. I made that mistake, but I appreciate you calling me out, and that's something that I always depend upon you in keeping me correct in my reviews. I try my best not to post information that might be inaccurate, but sometimes I make mistakes, and I apologize for that. But I hope that anyone who stumbles across these goggles happens to see this video and they can get some good idea of how the goggles will perform and what they should expect. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, or otherwise, please leave those in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.